I find the world a bitter and complicated place, and it seems to feel the same way about me. I think you and I have this in common. The Holdovers was directed by Alexander Payne, who's done films such as Election, About Schmidt, Sideways, and The Descendants. Written by David Hemmingson, who's done television and other projects. Check out the respective IMDb pages for the full list of their work. And this comes to us from Focus Features. It's set in 1970 at a boarding school over winter break. It's the most wonderful time of the year for the boys to go home. But oh no, the Holdovers cannot go home for respective reasons. So it's not the most wonderful time of the year for the Holdovers. There are a few lads, unfortunately, that have to stay behind and be watched by a chosen professor, who happens to be Paul Giamatti's Paul, who is not Paul anymore. He's Super Paul, a crass and dry-humored and very, very snide and sarcastic, hard-nosed, tough grading teacher. It's really just a full-on asshole. As other students describe him, nobody really likes him. And he's very set in his ways and feels just it's his way or the highway, and that he knows what the fuck to do, and he will just do everything he can to drive his students, but mostly he just beats the passion out of them because he's just so goddamn burned and just everything. He's just taking it out on everybody. Paul Giamatti, perfect for this role, by the way, because Paul Giamatti can play so many varied roles. And, of course, playing a man named Paul, they didn't have to worry about saying, hey, Paul, me Paul, or he Paul. Oh, me Paul, that's the role that was made for me. So, among these holdovers, and by the way, called the holdovers not because they're held over an open flame like a pig on a roast, or held over a volcano like Joe versus a volcano, or like in that episode of the Garfield cartoon where they had to drive a car up the volcano. Did I remember that episode right? I'm trying to remember that. And not like Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, Kali Ma. None of that. No, the holdovers, because they have no place else to go. Shrieking Richard, Gear of Noises. God, that movie is 40 years old. Nevertheless, basically, the reason these boys are there, actually it's a variety of reasons. Some, their family's too far away. Some, their family is doing other stuff. And some, maybe they just don't have the best home life to go home to. So Paul Giamatti's like, fine, I'll watch them. One of the boys is Angus, played by Dominic Sessa. And also there is the cook, it's Mary Lamb, by the way, played by Divine Joy Randolph, who was in The Lost City, who's terrific, by the way. She was magnificent in that. Great comedic timing, and also a very great series actress. And since it's set over Christmas break, we find out what the true meaning of Christmas is, hence why I got the hat on. And what the true meaning of the holidays is. Sometimes it's not all black and white. It's shades of, gray. It's red and green. All the colors that you've ever seen. Yeah, it's the holdovers party man. No, not quite that. The whole point is they, all the holdovers find out, things about each other, but it really centers around Paul, Angus, and Mary. And we find out that the holidays are tough for all three of them for a variety of reasons. And I'm just going to say right now, before I get into anything to be considered mild spoilers, that if you are on the fence about going to see this, fucking go watch this now. Go watch this. This movie is fucking magnificent. Great writing, great acting. Dominic Sessa, it says this is his debut. I refuse to believe this is his debut because it seems like he's been doing this for years. Now, he's a young man, but seriously, I would shake this man's hand and say, young man, please stick with this goddamn... And I would just be a weirdo and probably be sent out into goddamn space because I'm weird. But honestly, such a terrific goddamn performance. A home fucking run, a grand slam of a performance. This young man needs a Golden Globe nomination. I mean it. He's that good. He's that fucking good. Paul Giamatti deserves consideration as well. And Divine, she absolutely deserves just as much credit. These three, it was like a three-headed hydra as opposed to a multi-headed hydra. These three carried this goddamn film. It's not that the other cast members weren't good. The writing was crisp. Alexander Payne, by the way, who has done great films. Sideways, my favorite among the four that I mentioned. Thomas Hayden Church, Paul Giamatti, Sandra Oh. And Sandra Oh, by the way, deserving of so much respect. She's so goddamn good. So witty, so funny, and she can be a very serious actress as well. Now, since it's set in 1970, it is centered around the Vietnam War. That comes into play in a little bit. And also, I like how Focus Features did the cracking and the the way it was filmed and the credits and stuff like that, almost like it was from from the late 60s, early 70s, and it was really good. It was really good, really stylistically impressive. And what I like about this is it took its time. It was 2 hours and 13 minutes and flew. I mean, this movie flew by. It felt like it was about 85 minutes. I mean, there weren't any moments to me that dragged because they allowed things to breathe. They knew when to move shit. They knew when to let things breathe. They knew when to let it be super dialogue driven. And sometimes they didn't even need to let it be dialogue driven. You could just see the passion on the actors' faces. My God. There was one scene with Mary towards the end, and I mean, I'm not spoiling anything, but just, I was like, man, Divine, absolutely great. She's absolutely great. Dominic, again, is Angus. What a great conflicting emotional role he had to play. And Paul Giamatti, his body work speaks for itself. This movie's fucking terrific. This is going to be a modern Christmas classic. This is really goddamn good. If it is not in theaters for long, I hope it's out on streaming before Christmas hits, because this deserves to be seen. This deserves to 100% be seen. And there is a line in there, somewhere around the variations, life sometimes is like a ladder to a hen house, short and covered in shit. Or covered with shit, something like that. But Paul Giamatti has a lot of great witty lines, because Paul Giamatti is smart and witty and really, really goddamn good, and plays into the fact that maybe he isn't the most aesthetically pleasing individual, and that becomes a running gag throughout the whole thing. But again, Dominic Sessa, terrific, goddamn terrific, great 3 main performances, but the supporting cast did a great job as well in the setting and all that. It was so good, so good. Please go watch this. Go watch The Holdovers. There's every bit of hype that it got. In fact, I don't think it got nearly enough hype. Go watch it. The hell are you doing? Go watch the goddamn movie. Come back and watch my review when I get into spoilers. In theaters. God, this movie's so great. Gotta be a modern Christmas classic. 3, 2, 1, and spoilers. Okay, so basically a little bit earlier, Paul Giamatti is tasked with watching these boys. He doesn't want to, but then the headmaster, I'm sorry, I can't help but laugh at that, inside, snickering. No, Hulk, I said snickering. God damn it, Hulk. Basically because he failed a really, really popular, or, maybe not popular, I mean, I guess popular as far as how rich his parents were. He failed a boy that couldn't get into a particular school, and it turns out the parents were really big donors, and he doesn't like, spoiled kids. And it turns out that there's actually a reason why he doesn't like spoiled kids, and that's part of the reason why he was tasked with that. He sees himself as hot stuff, but he knows he's low on the totem pole, so to speak, or low on the ladder. And then it turns out sometime later we find out that actually he was at Harvard after talking to an old friend. He was at Harvard, and a rich, powerful kid plagiarized from him, but because his parents were really rich, he got made the scapegoat, and then he hit the boy with his car and fractured 3 ribs. It was funny because Paul Giamatti just delivering it like that, and that was a great goddamn scene. But Angus, it turns out the reason that he is not home for the holidays, his mother had met somebody new after things had not gone well with the father. We find out the father's dead, by the way, from Angus sometime later on. She wants to go with her new beau over Christmas break, but he's been working so much and we haven't had a chance to do this, and basically she's just casting him off. She's casting him off and not doing a very good job with it. The one that played the mother, by the way, I've seen her in other stuff, and she's a very good actress. I'm just saying the character. So Angus is home for that reason, or one of the holdovers for that reason. There's a Korean student whose parents are in South Korea, and he doesn't have a chance to go home. There's one who I believe is Mormon, and his parents are on a mission in Paraguay, I believe he said. One was told to cut his hair, and he wouldn't, so he couldn't go on some kind of trip. And then there's one that's a full-on dick. Basically, it's not that any of these characters don't have names. It's just really you just focus on the main 3 characters, even though there's some funny stuff that ties up with these characters a little bit later on. The one that was such a tragic story, though, was Mary. Divine played this perfectly. She lost her son in the Vietnam War, and very recently, and she's still haunted by this. So she stayed behind because she didn't have anywhere else to go. She could have gone with her, or gone seen her sister, who it turns out her sister is pregnant and expecting a kid with with her significant other. I mean, fiance, husband, I don't know. But she just felt it was too raw and it was just too soon. And there's one scene where they're at a party and she's just breaking down. She's like, he's gone. And Divine did such a great job with that. But there's so many great dialogue exchanges between Paul Giamatti and Dominic Sessa. But Divine, hanging with him. Like all three, every scene was them interacting was just so beautifully done. This is a terrific goddamn movie. This is fucking terrific. I will say how it does end up ending, though. I mean, obviously, spoiler section. During after they drop off Mary to visit her, sister. This is after a party, after she breaks down, where Angus actually ends up kissing a girl and he likes it, and is trying not to stare down her shirt. Oh, boys, we've all been there before. Paul Giamatti thinks it might actually work with a coworker, but won't work with a coworker because she actually has a significant other. He's disappointed by that, but also doesn't feel he feels that relationships aren't for him, but he also feels he's not necessarily worthy of that. If that kind of makes any sense, he's very jaded. And then Paul and Angus, after Angus says that his dad's dead, it actually turns out his dad isn't dead. His dad's in an institution. Angus has been taking medication, lithium, and taking other stuff. And his dad had basically schizophrenia, had issues. And that's why the mother divorced him and has a new guy. And she was casting the son off because the son is basically just like the son will end up like the dad. Well, you push him to that point, he might end up being like that. But as Paul Giamatti said, you're not your father, you're your own person. I'm not my father, nobody is their father. You're your own person. You have elements in you of them, but you are not them. And that part with Angus and his dad was really moving. But then it turns out that the headmaster finds out this wasn't actually a school trip or a field trip. And the parents are upset because Angus had taken the snow globe from this party and given it to the dad. Well, then the dad thought, because he's not all there, he thought that he could come home. Well, then the mother had to move him somewhere else. So he even tried to brain somebody with the snow globe. And there's been this stuff of there were these situations a little bit earlier on where Angus lied to make Paul seem better. Paul, Angus basically helped lie, when he landed on his arm doing a stunt in the gym. And, Barton Academy, Barton boys don't lie. And then he was going to get kicked out. Angus was. Everybody was back. Parents were upset. Paul Giamatti took full responsibility. So Paul got fired. Angus could stay. And he's moving out. Wherever he's going is where he's going to go. I'm skipping over a lot of stuff, but you really need to see this and see how this stuff plays out. But it's just, great, handshake. They leave. Mary's still there. She's kind of come to grips, even though she misses her son. Angus is back at school. And Paul takes off, and then the credits. And that's it. This movie's fucking terrific, and this movie gets an A+. This is phenomenal. I mean, phenomenal stuff. Absolutely world-class shit. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ricklin. I'll see you soon.